Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. Okay, so for this chapter, it will be done for this chapter and also for this week. So it will be done via asynchronous. Okay, so this is me recording the chapter 2. Okay, so chapter 2, we're going to learn about the diversity of the microbes and also the ecological requirements for each microbes at different ecology needs. Yeah. Okay, so the plan for today is these 5 things. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna do a recap on the previous lecture so that we don't forget what we learned on last week, and then we're gonna go for the classification. Okay, and then we go for the domains. And then we learn, I'm going to brief you the introduction to the 5 kingdoms, and we're going to do our activity 1. Okay, so please know that for this chapter, it's a really big chapter, and we allocated 4 weeks, okay, to finish this chapter. So usually for this chapter, I will finish it in 3 or 4 weeks, okay, so depending on the pace, the understanding, and also maybe if there are new stories to it, if there are new knowledge to it, then it will be longer than that, but it won't be longer than 4 weeks. Okay, all right, so the first one is to recap our previous lecture. So our previous lecture is on chapter 1. Okay, so if you still remember chapter 1, everything we learned about cells, the types of cells, the 2 types of cells, which are the prokaryotic and also the eukaryotic cells. So what I put here, okay, so I think because of my camera, I don't think I can move my camera, right? Okay, so that's fine. This table you can refer to the lecture notes in chapter 1. Okay, so this is the table showing the differences between the eukaryotic and also the prokaryotic cells and their characteristics. Okay, so there are a lot. So in this we can know that there are a lot of differences. Also, actually they have a lot of similarities as well. Okay, but what we want to know is the differences. Okay, so for example, the definition, the examples of the eukaryotic and also the prokaryotic. So you have to know by heart the differences between the eukaryotic and the prokaryotic, because this is the basis of the understanding for the microbiological world. Okay, so if these 2 cells, 2 different cell types, you are not mastering it, so maybe you will find some difficulties in the later lecture, also in the microbiology world, because this is the fundamental. Okay, so we need to know the differences. Okay, so please have a look, and I'm sorry because of the camera is located there, I don't know how to how to move it, so please refer this table in the last lecture note. Okay, moving on. Okay, so if you still remember, this is the diagram that I told you that you have to know it, you have to memorize it, you have to sleep on it, you have to dream it, because in this chapter we will be using this a lot. Okay, so remember there is a mathematical equation to it. We have 2, we have 3, and we have 5. Okay, so the way I see this is 2 plus 3 is equals to 5. Okay, what does 2 mean? So 2 is 2C, which is the cell types. Okay, so what are the cell types? The one in green color. Okay, so prokaryotes and also the eukaryotes. So this is the biggest group, okay, that we can see in this diagram. And then 3 is D. Okay, so what does D mean? It's 3 domains. Okay, so domains is the one in yellow color. Okay, so we have 3 domains: archaea, bacteria, and also eukarya. And so from here we know that the domain archaea and the domain bacteria, they are the prokaryotes, and the domain eukarya is, from the name itself, we know that they are the eukaryotes. Okay, and 5 is 5K. So what does K mean? K is the kingdoms. So kingdoms is this purple color. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so from 5 kingdoms, 4 of them are in the eukaryotic cells area. Okay, so automatically we know that the 4 kingdoms of plants, fungi, animals and protists, they are eukaryotes. And the remaining one, the last one, is called kingdom monerans. It's in the prokaryotes. Okay, so that's why if you remember this diagram, then it will be easier for you, okay, to understand whatever comes after this. All right, so remember this. 2 plus 3 equals to 5. 2C meaning 2 cell types, prokaryotes and also eukaryotes. 3D, 3 domains. So we have 3 domains, archaea, bacteria and eukarya, the yellow one. And then we have 5K, 5 kingdoms. So the purple one. So we have plants, fungi, animals, protists and also monerans. Okay, so the first one is we're going to look at the classification. Why classification is important? Because it involves in the grouping. It involves in the naming. Okay. Alright, so microorganisms. This is the simplest definition of what a microorganism is. So basically, it's a living things. Okay, they are too small to be seen with the unaided eyes or with the naked eyes. Sometimes we can say that the naked eyes or the unaided eyes, because when it is too small, then we have some we need some assistance to see them, and usually we use the microscope. Okay. However, the microorganisms, they live in our surrounding, and some of them are very beneficial for us, and some of them are very naughty, right? So they cause diseases. Okay, they don't help us, or they don't help other living things surrounding them. But that's just how they are. Okay, they are created to be. Some of them they are good, some of them to be bad. Okay, so there is a balance. Yeah. Alright, so in science, accurate and standard names are essential. It's true, because if we talk about the same thing, we have to know the name of that. Okay, so for example, chemists. Chemists must mean the same thing when they talk about an element or a compound, or if they talk about any chemicals or the reagents. So we need to know this. We need to know if we are talking about the same thing, so that no accidents can occur. Okay, physicists must agree when they discuss matter or energy. So when they talk about any energy, they talk about matter or black hole or whatever thing, then they have to be on the same term. Their definition must be the same. So as for us, the biologists, we must agree on the names of the organisms. Okay, so for example, if I say this is E. coli, we were talking about the E. coli, the characteristics, and then the shapes, and then the disease that it causes usually. But then my definition of E. coli is different than the other person's definition of E. coli. Then it will be chaotic, right? Okay, so that's why the biologists, must agree on the names of the organisms. Okay, so when we have the great number and the diversity of organisms, biologists use the characteristics of different organisms to describe the specific forms of life and to identify new ones. Okay, jadi let me try turn camera preview off. Okay, alright. So I think you can see here now. Alright, so forms of life. So we classify, or we group them based on the characteristics of the organisms. So we know that, for example, the one with the long flagella, or maybe as simple as the one with flagella, we put one group. The one without the flagella, we put another group. Okay, so it's easy for us to compare, and it's easy for us to know which one is which. So the grouping of related organisms together is the basis of classification. Alright, so another term that I need you to understand and I need you to know is taxonomy. Okay, but I believe you have come across this term when you are in your first year. Okay, you have insect taxonomy, plant taxonomy, animal taxonomy. Okay, so taxonomy is defined as groups of biological organisms on the basis of shared characteristics and giving names to those groups. So this is the classification. Because classification, besides we classify them, besides we group them, we also have to give name. We also have to give name to them. Okay, so that it means something and it's easy for us to refer to in the future. Alright, so taxonomy. Alright, usually we have 8-level system to the taxonomy. So the biggest one is the life, and then smaller to it, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Okay, so usually the name of the animals or the plants, we will go to this level. This is the most specific one, genus and species. So when we have identified the living things into their genus and species, then it is very easy for us to talk about it, because everybody will be on the same page, we will be on the same term, and we know what we're talking about. Okay, but if we're talking about some living things, some microbes, for example, because it's microbial diversity class, then microbes in the family level, then it can be any microbes in the same family. Okay, so for example, our family, we have the mother, the father, and then our siblings, right? So if you talk about anyone in the family, we only say that, oh, family A. Okay, so family A consists of five people, so we don't know which one they are referring to, which one they are talking to. But if we go to the specific, oh, okay, so it's the son number 1, name John Philip. Okay, so for example, John is the genus, Philip is the species. So we know exactly who we are talking about. All right. So find ways on how to remember the order. Starts with the life, ends with the species. So there is a suggestion for this. Did King Philip come over for grape soda? Okay, so it starts with the domain. Okay, domain, kingdom, phylum, case, classes, order, family, genus, and species. Okay, but it is up to you to come up with your own mnemonics for you to remember. Okay, for this taxonomy 8-level system. Okay, so why we need to classify? Okay, to establish the criteria for identifying organisms. So the main objective of us in doing the classification is because we want to identify the organisms. Yeah? To arrange related organisms into groups. Okay, so related, the one with the common characteristic, the one with the same characteristic, we group them in the same group. And then to provide important information on how organisms evolve. Yes, because from the same group, for example, there are few microbes, they have flagella, and few microbes, they don't have the flagella. Then we group them into 2 separate groups. But then later on, when we do a further research, then we will know, okay, so maybe there is a group, there is a microbe from the no flagella group, then somehow in the evolutionary history, they evolve into a flagella microbe. Okay, so maybe, for example, okay, next. All right. Make use and make sense of the fundamental concept of unity and diversity among living things. So the classification, the taxonomical group, so it is useful for us, okay, because we have a lot. It is a diverse group of microbes in this world, okay, and they are classified, they are grouped for the common characteristics. So for example, humans, we are in one group. So how do they classify, or how do they determine the characteristic for anyone who wants to be in the humans group? They must walk upright and they have well-developed brains. Okay, so any organisms, any living organisms that walk upright and have well-developed brains, then they can be considered and classified into the humans group. Okay, so for example, E. group. So any microbes, they are rod-shaped, and have a gram-negative cell wall, it can be in the same group with the E. coli. Okay. However, when we group them, when we classify them, yes, we classify them for the common characteristics or with the same morphology or characteristics. However, because the characteristics, they are very diverse among the organisms. So that's why, although we have grouped them in one group, but among them, in the same group, they must have differences as well. Okay? So, for example, with our siblings, okay? So, we are in the same group, in the same family, mother, father, and then sibling number 1, sibling number 2, and sibling number 3. Although we come from the same mother and father, but we all have differences as well. Okay. Alright. So, classification, okay, and dichotomous keys. Alright. Okay. So, for example, the branching diagram. Okay, so this shows the relationships among various biological species or other entities based upon similarities and differences in their physical or genetic characters. Okay, let's look at this diagram, what we can understand. Yeah, so basically this diagram, it shows us the classification of the animals based on the characteristic that they have identified here. So for example, everything on this line, okay, they must have hair and mammary glands. Okay, so all animals, okay, in this case is the animals. So all animals that have hair and mammary glands, they will be considered in this group. Okay, so platypus, brown bear, lion, and house cat, they have hair and they have mammary glands. And then starting from here, it must be all hair, mammary glands, and also giving birth to live young. So meaning only is narrowing down. Okay, so to the brown bear, lion, and house cat, but it's not the platypus. And then starting from here, it must have retractable claws. So in this case, narrowing down into lion and house cat. And from this point is ability to purr. So it's only the house cat. Okay, so comel. Alright, so can you imagine if lion, they have the ability to purr, then kita tak takut sangat, kan? Alright, so this is how we learn and this is how we read the branching diagram, and this is one of the ways to classify. Okay, so scientific names, we know scientific names, we have two parts. Yeah? The first part is the genus. Alright, so first part is the genus and the second one is the specific names. Okay, what else do we need to know? Okay, all genus name. Genus is the first part. We have to start with the capital letter, and then the species name, we have to start with the lowercase letter, and then both words are either underlined or italicized. Okay, and these scientific names, they are from Latin or the Greek. Okay, so I think most of you know this already. So dichotomous key. So dichotomous key is a way to do the classification as well and to do the identification as well. Yeah. So dichotomous key or decay, right? Sometimes we can call it only decay, so you have to get used to it. Is an aid to use to identify the organisms that consist of the answers to a series of questions. Okay. So for example here. So this is a dichotomous keys for the bacteria, and to be specific is on the gram-negative bacteria. Okay, so we go for the shape. So for example, you have this one unknown bacteria, and you know that it is a gram-negative, because usually to know whether it's to identify the unknown bacteria, first you will do this staining, gram staining test. Okay, because that's the most simple and easy, and it's very easy for us to distinguish them between these two types of bacteria, whether they are gram-negative or whether they are gram-positive. Okay. And then after you've done that and you know that this unknown bacteria is gram-negative, then you can follow this. Okay, so for example, look at the shape. is it a cocci or bacilli? So if it is a cocci, and then growth in air, so we know that there's one. So if it is a shape in a bacilli shape, and then growth in air, whether it's using the LCDs or the kanamycin, and then you just follow this flowchart, and then at the end, then you will know, okay, whether the species and the genus and the species name, all of this, the one, okay, the one at the end, for this one, yep, okay. Alright, so this is how the dichotomous key helps us in identifying the bacteria. Okay, so remember again, this is the taxonomic level, 8-level system, and know how to remember this, okay? Alright, now we've come to the 3 domains, okay? So remember, we have the mathematical equation, 2 plus 3 equals to 5, okay? So we have covered this. I think I'm going to use yellow now. Okay, so we have covered this. Okay, now we are going to cover this, the 3 domains, yeah? Okay, looking back again at this diagram, so now we want to learn about the domains, yeah? So domains is in yellow. So this is archaea, tak nampak pula. Let's try blue. Okay, so archaea, and then bacteria, and then eukarya. Okay, so by looking at this diagram, we know that domain archaea and domain bacteria, they are prokaryotes. Domain eukarya, it is eukaryotes. Okay, so that's the first thing that we know about it now. Okay, so eubacteria, or the domain bacteria, and then domain archaea, and then domain eukarya. So remember again, domain bacteria and archaea, they are the prokaryotes. Okay, so for domain eukarya, they are the eukaryotes. Okay, so the bacteria is the bacteria, and then archaea is a type of prokaryotes. They can live in extreme environments, and sometimes we call them the extremophiles. Okay, and then the domain eukarya, they are the eukaryotes. So we know that for all eukaryotic cells, they have nucleus and organelles, and they are multicellular. Okay, so it's very easy. So that's the 3 domains. Now, let's see domain number 1. So archaea. Remember archaea, domain archaea, and then is the prokaryotic. Okay, let's write again so that we remember this. Okay, so it's prokaryotic, and they can live in the extreme environment, and sometimes we call it extremophiles. Okay, so it is a prokaryotes. So when we say that they are the prokaryotes, they do not have nucleus. Most of them live in the extreme environment. Okay, so these are the information that we need to know about the domain archaea. Okay, domain bacteria. Okay, so domain bacteria, again, they are the prokaryotes. Okay, so prokaryotic, no nucleus, single cell, they can be found everywhere. Bacteria, right? We live with them, we sleep with them, we breathe in them. Some of them are very beneficial for us, but some of them, they are very bad to us. They are very naughty to us because they cause disease. For example, tuberculosis, for example, pneumonia. Okay, so those caused by the bacteria. Okay, so that's the second domain. Now the third domain, which is the one that we'll be talking a lot, is domain eukarya. Okay, so eukarya, we know that it is the only domain in the eukaryotes. So meaning they have nucleus, and also they are multicellular, and they have organelles, and they are very complex. Okay, just by looking at this cell, we know that they are very complex. They have a lot of organelles. Okay, so the organelles are numbered. So they are numbered until 10. No, 13, 12, 13, 13. Okay, so in this case, there are showing us that there are 13 organelles in the eukaryotic cell. Okay, so there are few characteristics of the eukarya. So they have a membrane bound organelles. Okay, so in contrast to the to the prokaryotes, they don't have the membrane bound organelles. Okay, so the prokaryotes, they have very less organelles and they do not have the membrane bound organelles. But for eukaryotes, they have a lot of organelles, and each organelles, they have membrane bound, okay, to protect them. Okay, second one is the presence of double membrane nucleus. Okay, so exactly we know the main difference between the prokaryotic and also the eukaryotic is the presence of the nucleus. Yeah, so prokaryotic, they don't have nucleus. So for eukaryotic, they do have nucleus, in which the genetic material is entrapped in that nucleus. Cell division is different. Okay, so for eukaryotic, because it is a complex cell, it's a eukaryotic cell, right? So it's multicellular, it's a complex, so all the processes are complex. So that's why the cell division is different than the prokaryotics. Yeah. Okay, and the mode of reproduction as well. Okay, so usually the eukaryotic cells, they can reproduce between using the mitosis or the meiosis. Okay, so asexual reproduction or the sexual reproduction. Okay, so we're not going to look into how mitosis happens, how meiosis happens. I think we've covered that maybe in school, ataupun you will cover that in other lectures. Okay, but we're not going to cover that. But just know that for eukaryotes, for domain eukarya, because they are the eukaryotic cells, then their mode of reproduction are different. Okay, so again, what color? Let's choose green. Okay, so remember, no, you can't see that. Okay, so remember we have 2 plus 3 equals to 5. Okay, so we've covered the 2 cell types. So there are prokaryotics and also eukaryotics. And then we have covered the 3 domains, which are the bacteria, archaea, and also the eukarya. And the domain bacteria and the archaea, they are the prokaryotes. Domain eukarya, they are the eukaryotes. Okay, now we are going to see the 5K, which is the 5 kingdoms. But I'm not going to go through it deeply in this lecture, because we are going to cover it in the next lecture. So I'm just gonna give an introduction to you briefly on the 5 kingdoms only. Okay, so again, back to this diagram. Right now we're looking at the kingdoms. So the kingdoms is the purple one. Okay, so we have just now tadi monerans, plants, fungi, animals, and also protists. Okay, so by looking at this diagram, we know there are 5 kingdoms. Okay, and then only one is the prokaryotes, and the other 4 are the eukaryotes. Okay, so that's the first thing that you can see the differences or the similarities between the kingdoms. Okay, so the 5 kingdom classification, who classified them? Okay, so this is this uncle, okay, R.H. Whittaker in 1969. He proposed the 5 kingdom classification. So that is easier for us to understand, to identify them. Okay, so we have Monera, Protista, Plantae, Fungi, and Animalia. And going back to the diagram, we know that Monera is the prokaryotes and the other 4 is the eukaryotes. And the characteristics, so this is the table showing the differences between the 5 kingdoms. Okay, so the first one, we know that the internal cell membrane. Okay, so internal cell membrane for prokaryotes, we know they don't have. Okay, in comparison to the eukaryotes. So we know Monera, they don't have, it's absent. Meanwhile, for the other friends, which are the eukaryotes, they do have the internal cell membrane. So it is all present. Cell wall, everyone, for example, Animalia, they don't have animals, right? We know. Okay, so organization, okay, so we know that all the prokaryotes, they are unicellular. But for the other 4 kingdoms, some of them are unicellular, some of them are multicellular. Mode of nutrition is how they eat. Yeah, so for prokaryotes is either for the 5 kingdoms is either autotroph or the heterotroph. And the definition of the autotroph is down here, and the heterotroph is down here. And I'm sure you have covered this before, the definition between the autotroph and also the heterotroph. And this is the example of the groups under the kingdoms, these respective kingdoms. So for example, Monera is the archaea and eubacteria, prokaryotes, right? So Protista is the protozoa, algae, slime molds, Plantae is mosses, ferns, seed plants, and then fungi is the molds, yeast, mushrooms, Animalia, all the animals with or without backbones. Okay. Alright, so I think that's the introduction for the 5 kingdoms. Alright, now what we're going to do is, let's do the activity. Okay, this activity, actually it is related to the previous and also the next week lecture. Okay, so if you still remember, in the previous lecture, we did the questions and answers for the Kahoot game, but based on chapter 1. Okay, on the prokaryotic, on the eukaryotic, and also the cell types, and we made it into the Kahoot games, and we viral it to the public. So people in Malaysia and people in Indonesia, they are all playing it. Okay, however, for the free plan Kahoot, they allow only 50 participants only. Okay, so it is basically not enough. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is, for this one, let's do the same thing, where you come up with your question and then your 4 possible answers, and then make note which one is the correct answer. But this time we're going to do on the COVID-19 facts. Okay, so it's no longer about prokaryotic or eukaryotic, but we're going to do on the COVID-19 facts, because it is the in thing now, the trending one, and also it has something to do because this is about the virus. Okay, virus is one of the microorganisms, and that's what we are going to learn in this course. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, when you give me all the questions and all the answers, I'm going to vet them. I'm going to check for grammar. I'm going to check for the facts. Okay, so all the chosen questions, I will take them and I will put it in the Kahoot game, and then I will create several links. Okay, the links, all of the links will be the same questions. Okay, so for example, link 1, 50 people, link 2, 50 people. So maybe I will create, I don't know, I don't know if they have any maximum number of links that I can create. So if I can create up to 10 links, and then each link can accommodate up to 50 people, then we will know that 500 people can play it. Okay, so we will tell the public that if you can't play on the link 1, try link 2. If you can't play link 2, try link 3. If you can't play link 3, try link 4, and so forth. Okay, so even after link 10, then it is sold out, for example, then we know that our game is very successful and is very popular because it has reached to at least 500 people and played it. Okay, alright, so same again. Okay, this time I don't want you to post your questions and answers in the Padlet. What I'm gonna do is, I want you to go to the Google Jamboard. So I will give you this link. Then go to that link, and then you just explore it on how to use the Google Jamboard. You can use the sticky notes. Okay, alright, so I think that's all for today. Okay, I will continue on the chapter 2 next week, and thank you very much for your attention.